Okay, so we are back to the last panel of the NACAC Soccer Hub online debates. The challenge that we have in this panel is to discuss winning versus development. It's a very hot topic, as you know. And for that, we invited Nikola Leposavic and Ian Barker. The panel will be moderated by Cosmas Moratidis. I just want you to know once again that this is a live event, so we'll be able to ask questions. Please introduce it on the chat box. And our moderator will try to select some to introduce to our speakers. So I will introduce Ian Barker, Nicola, and Cosmas. Hello, guys. Good afternoon. Good morning.
Hello, everybody.
Cosmas, the panel is yours, okay? I'll be back in 45 minutes. See you in a bit.
Thanks very much. Gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon. Evening is depending on where we are. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to work with us and engage us and give us your insights. And I'd like to thank all of the people who are behind the scenes in organizing this Soccer Hub and the NSCAC. Outside of that, it's duly important to note that all of the people that are making us safe during this time, reaching out to them and thanking them for everything that they do and hoping that their families and they are all safe as well. Gentlemen, thank you once again. The topic that we're going to jump into is winning versus development, and it's a relatively hot topic of conversation, and it's not only aligned to our sport, but to any sport that has that kind of conversation, especially at the youth model and the youth level. Ian, I'll start with you, please, if you would. Can you give us your perspective as the Director of Coaching Education for the USC and what you see in this discussion and how it has developed over the course of these, let's say, last 10 years, this last decade?
Sure. I think in thinking about this coming into the hub today and having been asked this question so many times in the last, for a number of years, I think that it's a single word answer. It could be the beginning and the end. It's context. So what's the context, right? I mean, if you're an MLS coach, I don't think there is anything more important, respectfully, than winning. You probably only have 2 or 3 years in the job, and it's to win professional games. If you're coaching 6 and 8-year-olds in a rec program in Pickering, Ontario, I would say that winning is far, far further down that list. If I think about an interesting observation, a couple of years ago, the USL team here, which is essentially our second division in Kansas City, was affiliated with our professional MLS team, and they were one of the top teams. They got to the final every year of that competition. Last year, they came pretty much bottom of the USL because they were a group of young players with first-team players coming down. And so the emphasis of that squad, a professional squad or a semi-professional squad, completely changed because the first-team coach wanted to use the second team to bring on young players. And so in a professional environment, development won out over winning for that group. So it is possible to blend it across the various levels that we have. I will say this, though, that winning is always important in some capacity. So at the end of the day, in a grassroots environment, when you put a group of kids in a blue vest and a group of kids in a red vest, they might not be able to keep score. They might not actually have the ability to do that. But they almost certainly know that they're trying to better the other side. I think it's just simply a question of we as coaches, we as owners of clubs, administrators, and certainly the parents need to put it in a healthy context. And I would put it to you that at the youth level, as much as the development of talent, the development of a competitive mindset, having children learn about dealing with adversity and competition and things like that, we're also trying to get them to come back to the sport year after year. And winning and having success competitively needs to be part of that, but it is by no means the most exclusive part of that.
Excellent, Ian. Thank you. Nicola, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. More or less, I think the same as Ian. The truth is somewhere between, I think that we need to learn the players how to win but on one healthy way. I can speak about how we work here in Europe, and also I was a few years ago in Canada in Ottawa Fury, and I had experience there. And more or less everybody want to win. But what is also important, it's important how we will win. I want to say that it's very important to know what is the key points when we work from different ages of the players. We have short terms and also we have long terms development, but I think that we need to have balance because we want to create very successful players who will be able to compete on a senior level. That means that we need to know our way of playing, our way of coaching, and our way of selecting players, also our way of corrections. For example, sometimes it's very good if we lose a game, especially in youth, because only if we lose the games we can see how the players will react in these situations. We will see mentality of the whole team, of the player, each player, and sometimes it's good to win. And we want to win every time, but in other way it's good to lose because especially when we speak about player development, I think that they need to have progress in each part of this development. If we talk about technique, if we speak about tactic, physically, mentality, everything, you will have progress only if you have both winnings and losses, you know. But of course, the key point for coaches and for clubs, directors is to set up the culture of winning, and to set up the proper way how we will learn young players to win and to compete. More or less, this is the most important things. Also, maybe the first things are we want to develop young players to be healthy, to have healthy lifestyle habits, to enjoy in the trainings, to enjoy in the football, to become a good as a persons. Also, we need to care about how they are in a school. We are here in Europe, in Serbia especially, because we are producing a lot of talents for very big clubs around the world. We are care about all aspects of development. There is some things that we are doing on the field. Also, there's things that we are working on out of field. But all these things are very important if we want to have a successful senior players who want to compete on top levels.
Very good, thank you. Forgive me as I write because I'm taking notes, a student, while you're teaching, the both of you, as we go through this. Some of the questions that popped into my mind again that are related to some of my notes. Every club is going to have development look a little bit different, and we talk about LTPD, long player development programs, and then in certain pockets of the world, they are mandated specifically by provincial, state organizations, national organizations. But at the professional level, the professional team develops its own culture, and the professional programming is its own developmental culture of what they want their team to look like. As Nicola alluded to, that we have a culture within our program that talks about first team, second team, reserve program, all the way down into our youth streams. And so many of the things that we deal with when we talk about development revolve around two items, in my opinion. The first of which is, what is our culture like? And the second is, how do we develop our culture? Well, in North America, we seem to be playing catch-up oftentimes, or that's the impression, because there are other sports that might be targeted differently. Not necessarily a fan of that thought, but I do believe that because of the nature of how our game is organized here, it is much more difficult to have a development of culture when we don't have the conversation ahead of time asking about pay to play versus not pay to play. And so in European countries and in some North American major cities where the MLS programs are in play, the pay to play environment isn't one we have to worry about necessarily, but the minute you leave that environment, it becomes a pay to play conversation. So in your opinions, and I'll start with Nicola this time, and then Ian, if you can finish up the conversation. What do you think about pay to play and how it affects what you do? Obviously, it's not something that you deal with directly in Serbia, but something that you might have dealt with Ottawa and the surrounding areas.
More or less, we have also these situations here in Serbia. Depend of the level of the club. If it's the full professional club from Super League and First League, there is no pay, monthly pay for academy players. But the smaller clubs has that options. Of course, it's harder to work and to set up the culture of playing in the clubs, smaller clubs, because there is a lot of things that we are able to know. For example, smaller clubs need, for example, to rent the fields, and they need to find the money how will rent the fields, and that means that they are trying to find a way how to organize the whole club. With the professional level, it's easier, of course. It's important to have exactly what is the culture of the club, what is the values of the club, what is the playing style, what is the procedures, how will we train. Everything needs to be set up in a proper way, and everybody needs to know all about the organization, club organization. For example, when we work here in Serbia with a young player, first things we need to describe what is our club, what we want, what is the coach for our kids, our values for the club, and step by step we need time to set up properly all these things, but we need to work on all these aspects every day, you know. In the smaller clubs, I think that it's harder because you need to have a little bit, you need to be more flexible, because you need to care about all players in the same way, you know. On a professional level, we care more about the pure talents. Of course, we care about all kids, but our focus on the talents. And we have two groups: the group of talented players, and the other group, the players who are just came into the club from, for example, open days or something like that, and they have opportunity to train in a club, to be monitored of the coaches, and they have opportunity to translate in a proper academy, you know. And I want to say that more or less we have two teams in professional clubs, and we care on the same way, but of course depend on the quality of the players. If the players is quality enough, we will say, okay, you don't need to play. We want to invest in you. We want to give you our knowledge. We want to care about what you eat, about all aspects. In other way, the players who just came into the academy, as I said, you know, open days, we share our knowledge, our culture, but it's not on the same way, you know, if you can understand me. And I had the more or less the same experience in Ottawa, especially because I was working in the first team and also with the seniors. What is the different way? First of all, the number of trainings and the way how we train. We had only 3 trainings plus game with the seniors. If we compare with the European teams, this is under 21 or under 18. In Serbia, in Europe, we have everyday trainings, and more or less we are treat them as a professionals. And more or less, this is a big gap between European culture and North American culture. This is how I saw. You don't have enough time to work on this way. If you can understand me, what is the point?
Excellent, thank you, Ian. Your experience at the USC, previously the NSCAA, and coaching at the collegiate level certainly is going to give us a different picture, perhaps. But as a leader in coach development and youth development in the United States and even in Canada, with a lot of your affiliate members here in Canada, what do you think? Either tagging on to what Nicolas to say, or maybe on a tangent, what do you see happening?
Well, I think Nicola talked a lot about the culture and the brand of that club or that environment. And so I think this is an approximate paraphrase of Vince Lombardi, the American football coach, something along the lines of winning is not a sometime thing, it's an all the time thing. And I think that speaks not to just wins and losses in a win-loss column, but it speaks to doing the right things over and over again within your culture. So your development plan, your commitment to the athletes on and off the field, your commitment to the fan base. So I kind of like that idea of winning being something which is a process, and that one of the products of that winning culture is obviously wins in the win column. I don't think an MLS environment, in our case, which is completely free for the players, as opposed to a pay-to-play youth club, is necessarily better. It probably eradicates the challenges of the tryout process and only the kids that can afford to pay being access to the program. However, if the MLS Development Academy, if the way they treat the players when they can no longer use them or they don't make the grade is not well managed, then I don't think it's any healthier than being in a pay-to-play club in a grassroots community. If I think real quick about a couple of examples that may help frame it a little bit. Down in the US, clubs make a lot of money to keep open, grassroots clubs, by hosting tournaments. Clubs come in, hotels, restaurants, everybody plays. One of the challenges of those tournaments is that you overuse the players. It's very attritional in nature. And by the end of the weekend, the kids have played too much. Usually the better ones have played too much. Hardly anybody watches the final. Everybody's tired and jaded, and it's very physically abusive. However, it is about winning, because you've got to win the tournament. So people have changed that model, and they offer what we call showcases. So now the teams show up and they play 2 or 3 friendlies. You have the same economic impact, but you're not having this attritional play through to a champion. So you've de-emphasized winning. College coaches show up to recruit, and they say, we want to see the boys and girls in games which mean something, not games that are just development games. So you're a little bit damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And so, in my opinion, and I'm sure it's the same in a professional academy in Serbia, there will be opportunities and events where it's very clear to the players, hey, we're putting the best 11 on the field today because this is the cup and we need to get promotion or whatever it is. And there will be other times in the season, in a periodized manner, where we say this is a different type of opportunity. We're going to try and play a different formation. We're going to put in some different guys. So I don't think this debate of winning and development is exclusively weighted along a spectrum of the most grassroots to the most professional. And I do think that to really kind of continue to frame the argument, it's about owning your culture and committing to your program, which I think is what Nicola spoke a lot about at the beginning.
Stanley, thank you. I'm going to throw a topic out at you and tell me what you think about it. Would you consider development a liberal arts philosophy of coaching? So I think about liberal arts in terms of education at the post-secondary level, and there's specialization, but a liberal arts philosophy of coaching when we look at development. Is that something that you would agree with or disagree with? Ian, we'll start with you on this one, if you would.
Are you talking about from the perspective of the player?
Of the player, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, Nicola said it very well at the beginning. I think most of us as professionals in the space now are looking at a much more holistic approach to the development of the player. Maybe the first team manager who has a life expectancy in the job of 18 months is not quite as concerned. But those of us at the under 23, under 19, certainly in the academies, increasingly are trying to make sure that the athlete is well-rounded. Now, at a callous level, we want to make sure that if we travel to South Central America with our Olympic development players, that they don't get in trouble. So we want to pick some guys with good characters. If we take players of great ability, but a poor character in a difficult environment, they may fail and bring a blemish to themselves and to our environment. And of course, we know all over the world there are places which bring players in and disregard them or dispose of them and with no interest. But I do think in the top programs, professional and non-professional, we're looking at and we're saying, what is your family situation? What is your sleep? What is your health and nutrition? And yes, we want to make the best players that can win us games, but we have a greater holistic approach or holistic attitude towards the player development.
So thank you. Nicola, anything to add?
I agree with Ian. I think it's very important to know what is the goals for each selection. I think that this is the more important thing. I have a lot of examples here. For example, that I will speak, for example, about Nemanja Matic, who is now in Manchester United. He was in Crvena Zvezda and Partizan. This is the biggest clubs here in Serbia, but he needed to find his way because when he was in Zvezda or Partizan, in that time, maybe it was some player who was better in only in this time frame, you know, and it's really tricky to say, look, this guy will be professional 100%, or this guy will not. For me, generally, is not so important from where is the player, but it's important to have clearly scouting report and clearly pathway how we will lead this guy to the first team. And also, I think it's very important that speak more individually about coaches, about players, about everybody, because everybody needs something differently, you know. And I think that it's important that we have a structure, that we have a philosophy of our playing, of our scouting, on how we will develop our coaches. We need this organization, but also I think that we need to think more about individual perspective, because in my opinion, I think that the most important thing in any organization, in any club, is the human being. Each person, each coach, each kit man, you know, because everybody are important if we want to develop on a proper way each player or each coach.
Very good, thank you. Forgive me again, I keep taking notes as you both educate the masses. I think we both, all three of us, agree on the winning and development don't have to be mutually exclusive as we move forward. And the structures that you have displayed and indicated certainly speak to that. I want to talk a little bit about the ecology of something, and the something would be a football club or an organization. And it's got two parts to it. It's got a content and a management side to it. And we've talked a lot about the content and management from a player conversation. Would you like to touch on, from a coaching, a managing perspective now, how do you address staff, members, coaches, assistants, as Nicola mentioned, the culture of the club? How do you address and how do you try to educate those types of individuals so that we're all culturally on the same path, going the same way, number one? And number two, what do you do with those individuals who are consistently making efforts to win at the expense of? And again, it's a bit of a loaded question. It's not meant to lead one way or the other. I'll start with Ian, please. And Ian, your background in coaching education, and certainly with what you have done over the years at the NSCAA and now the USC, might give us a bit of a handle on this.
I think the challenge in a lot of our clubs, and I would say this is I've seen this at the professional level certainly, and it's much more apparent as you go through the ranks, is you may get a group of coaches that have the same gray tracksuit top, red shirt, blue top, because they're all part of that club or that entity, but they're completely unrelated and unconnected or disconnected. So the first thing is that the DNA of the club needs to be shared through all of the levels. And there may be extreme examples where the top, the A team, whilst it still likes to have some homegrown talent, is an entity unto itself. But everything up to that point, from the little guys up to the under 23, let's say, or the second team, all of those coaches need to be connected with what is the principles, philosophy, expectations of the club. And that may be that the expectations of this particular club is that you've got to be the top of the league in every age group. Of course, we've seen clubs, I've worked with clubs in Central America, where their primary job is to produce talent to sell so that the club can stay in business. So they are much more focused on the development for the long-term health of the club than winning trophies, because winning trophies is just not really particularly possible for them. They can't hold on to their talent. There are instances where all of us have to take a deep breath and say, this person is in our program. I'm not happy with their performance, but right now I can't do any better. But at the end of the day, you're looking to develop a culture where everybody is on the same page. Now, part of that is that the club values the manager or the coach of the under 12s as much as they value the coach of the under 23s. That may not be reflected in financial compensation, but it certainly can be reflected in other meaningful ways of respect and attention and publicity and support of those coaches. So from my perspective, part of building a staff is not building a group of individuals to place into pigeonholes within the group. It's to build a coaching staff which is as connected to the DNA of the club as the playing curriculum and the playing philosophy.
Thank you, Ian. Nicola, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree again with Jan. I think that first of all, we need to describe to the coaches what is the club and what is the whole philosophy of the club. What is the wealth of the club, and everybody need to know exactly what we expect from each person. There is a lot of individual responsibilities, but somebody, especially on the top levels, need to say to each person what they expect from them. Also, what is important to know what is desired from each person in a staff. We had here in Serbia, depend on the club, there is small staff. Some coaches need to work on 3 roles. For example, he's assistant coach, he's working on a field, he is also a video analyst, and maybe he's helping something in academy. It's happened. In other way, there is full staff that each person has only one role. But if you want to develop each person, you need to know what exactly this guy want to be, and what he needs to be better. Because in my point of view, if you help each person in a staff, they will help each player, and everybody will grow. The team will grow, and the whole club will grow. But of course, they need to know everything about playing style, what is in which systems we play, what kind of trainings we do with each selection. For example, what is the goals for example, this month, and what is the goals for this game. All this needed to be set up from the director of the club, and he will share ideas on the whole pyramid. And only if everything is set up properly and everything is clear, we can say, okay, this guy is working well, he is working on our way, he is working on a proper way, or no, he has some mistakes. Okay, how we will fix all this? It's the same with the players. If the players know what we expect from them in each situation, for example, when we attack, when we defend, they need to know what he need to do in each situation. But our job from the coaching staff is to describe and to train that what we expect from them. And I think that it's very important to set up all these things and to give them knowledge. I think that this is a key, the knowledge.
Very good, thank you.
Carlos, I'd like to add, if I may.
Please.
I'm just looking at the chat box, by the way, and Nicola, a gentleman called Jay Bindi said that he had worked with you when you were in Ottawa, and he said hello. I was recently in Europe. I won't tell you the professional club. However, this professional club claims that it is the only club in Europe that developed in its academy 2 Ballon d'Or winners, neither of whom won the Ballon d'Or when they were with that club. But it's a very, very top club. And what they were explaining to me was that they had been under a system where they pushed players up through the ages very aggressively. So the 15s were playing on some of the best 15s were on the 17s, some of the best 17s were on the 19s, etc. And so that was what everybody knew. So if you were the 15 coach, you knew that at any given time, the 17s could pull your players up, and then you had to go and bring in your subs, or maybe find some from the younger team. And that was their model, and everybody was very comfortable. New ownership, new leadership came in and said, we want to win the age group at every competition. And so now you have competing and conflicting information to the coaches. Previously, they were meant to be brave and push their boys on, and now they were being encouraged or incentivized to keep their squads together and not recommend them within the club structure to move up through the age groups. When I was at the club and in their academy setting, the people that they're at full time believed much more in the previous model and were disappointed that the club had become so callous that they really thought it was important to win the U15 championship more so than push the boys through. So it's an interesting example, and it happens in top clubs in Europe where these mixed messages can be sent to the coaching staff.
Thank you. What a great insight. There are a whole slew of comments. I've been going through them as we've been listening in, and I want to touch on a couple of them. John Paul Jones asked, do you think developing players is what leads them to winning? And then there's a second one where after we answer this one, hopefully we'll have time to get to. So, Ian, let's start off with you on this one, then we'll go to Nicola. Do you think developing players is what leads them to winning? This question from John Paul Jones.
I think players at any level, whatever the level is, the player that stands out, one of those qualities will be obviously technical and tactical, but one of the important qualities is that they have a extra level of competitiveness over their colleagues on the team. So I don't care whether we're talking grassroots or the highest professional level, a difference maker on your squad will be partly based on their competitive fire.
Excellent. Nicola, anything to add?
I agree totally. Here, the first thing is when we selecting the players is to have that desire to compete. If you watch in a primary school, the kids, when they play 3 games, everybody want to win. Nobody play just to play. Even if they are playing for fun, but everybody want to score. And everybody is starting as center forwards because they want to score the goals. And natural, this is in our nature. But of course, I think as let's say Jan, it's not about the level of the club. It's about the culture of winning. And I don't know how it's possible to train somebody and to tell them, look, let's play, and it's not important to win. It's for me, it's not. This is not natural, you know. It's good. Okay, our goal maybe is to do proper dribbling, for example, or to do something what we train, for example, this week. But we are doing all these things to win, because everything what we do in a club is to win or to produce a player who will win in senior level, you know. And I think that yeah, we are developing players, lead them to win. We learn them how to win, and we are helping them to develop their skills to be competitive on championships or tournaments or whatever.
If I can encapsulate, it seems, again, chime in, please, guys, whenever you can, that we're trying to develop a culture of good decision-making, teaching players how to win and when to win. Anthony Marino had sent in a question, and it kind of ties into what we were talking about. And Anthony asks, when, where, and how do you prioritize winning? And this is a topic that works into the periodization of your team's week, monthly, session, season, and year. So I think what he's trying to ask, and if I may speak for Anthony, forgive me if I'm wrong, you're saying, when do you throw in the winning? Do you toss it into small-sided games? Do you toss it into your periodization? I know that I have my personal opinion on this, but I want to hear from the experts, certainly. So, Nicola, when would you throw winning in? When do you prioritize winning in? And I'll probably piggyback onto the last answer you had for us.
In each exercise. Yep. This is the key for me, because even if we are working on some coordination or quickness polygon, you know, we are separate kids in 2 different groups, and we are trying to make all these things in competitive perspective, you know. Of course, there is a time where is the most focused to correct how they will do this correctly, technically, but the key point when they are do all these basic movements correctly, we are trying to push them in some competitive exercises. And for example, if you're doing some technique element like juggling, I'm always pick, okay, let's try. Who will juggling 10 times? It's 1 point. 15 times is 2 points, and they are trying. This is competition between them, and I think that in each exercise they need to compete. This doesn't mean that they need to compete between them. They need first of all to compete with themselves. For example, okay, you started juggling with 10. Okay, we will try to for next training to move this line to maybe 15. Let's try. And this is also competition. And I think that this is a very important to have that desire to progress on that way. And this is a way how we'll create a culture of winning.
Very good. Thank you. Ian, please.
Yeah, well, I think I think the first thing I think about is that we want to have a consequence to everything we're doing. So the most grassroots player, whatever the type of environment, if people don't think that you're paying attention and there's a consequence to their performance, what is their motivation to perform well and to try hard? So I 100% with Nicola there. In terms of a weekly cycle, typically in my American college environment, for example, the most competitive, go at it, full-blooded type of training would be on maybe a Wednesday before a Saturday competition. That would be in a weekly cycle for me. And then on a seasonal basis, if I'm in a youth club environment and I have a league, I have the national championship cup competition, and then I have a number of tournaments, I'm going to prioritize which ones are more important. So maybe in a culture, the league is more important, the cup competition is different. So you see this in countries like Great Britain, where maybe they put their under-23s top clubs like Liverpool and Man United. Winning the Carabao Cup is important, the League Cup, but it's also important to give under-23s a first-team experience. Winning the Premiership is more important. And then, of course, you get into the world of Man City and Jurgen Klopp, where Guardiola and Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp, where they're looking at Champions League and Premier League and the FA Cup. And so everybody has these challenges. And I don't think it's reasonable to expect a squad of players of 15, 16 to win everything all the time. And then finally, I set goals at the beginning of a season, but if those goals are so contingent upon winning every game, you could have derailed your entire season after the first competitive fixture. So you have to chunk your season into small objectives, which include winning games, but it's not exclusive to trying to win every single game as the single goal.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments as we close. We've got a couple of minutes, and I apologize to Spusa MM. There's one last question maybe that we can touch on if we have a second. Is, are we coaches, clubs, federations providing young players in the proper technical foundation to develop their fullest potential when they reach the ages of winning? It's 15 and up, and I think you've answered that question because we're talking about winning from the earliest level, and the discussion certainly has talked about winning appropriately.
I will say just real quick, because I know Erwin and Nicola's in a very different environment than most of us. I think in North America, we have gone too far away from technical foundation as a general rule. I think in North America, we've got so excited as grassroots coaches with X's and O's and talking tactics that we need a reboot in North America and get back to technical training and making it sexy, because I think the problem is it was deemed to be dull and drill-like, and we can do better. But I think it's a lack in the North American culture as a whole.
Very good, thank you. I know we talk about these topics and the surrounding venue is football, soccer, but I'm quite sure that this is happening in basketball and hockey and football, the American football, and so on and so forth. And what I'm finding is that oftentimes people treat training as a dull, rigorous event, and instead of organizing training, and this is the responsibility of the managers, the coaching staff, the trainers, to make it a fun, anxious event where we want to get to training and want to get into that session. And there's nothing wrong with trying to win in a training session. We compete. We have goofy games. Like, can we get 4 kids put their heads together and run around a cone to get to that and get back to the next group of 4? And you see it at the professional level as well. There's always fun involved in the training sessions. And in every training session, whether it's 4-on-4, 5-on-5, 2-with-2s, relays, everybody is trying to win. So the winning mentality is imprinted, although, and albeit in a fun way. And so the development of players in terms of motivation, in terms of organization, is important, because then we put that winning as a fun, enjoyable environment outcome, as opposed to I got to win and there's a nasty side to it. And unfortunately, historically, there's been a nasty side, win at all costs. Well, that's not necessarily needing to be true. It's critical for us to race to the finish line, but what finish line are we racing to? Is the development finish line the one we're concerned about, or the winning finish line the one we're concerned about? And I think if you race the development side, you're always going to be at the same finish line as the winning side, and that's just my personal opinion at the end of our conversation here. Is there anything else that either of you would like to add that I may have missed on? I know we could talk for hours and days on it, and we all have personal experiences within this, but is there anything that I may have missed in the conversation, or anything that we need to target in your opinions as we close?
No, I'm quite satisfied. I'd like to thank you for emceeing, and it's a real pleasure, Nicola, to be on with you. And I hope I'll catch up with you either here in North America or in Europe sometime. I was scheduled for Hungary in the Euros, but my hotel is going to let me go in 2021, so I'll be in Hungary at least for Euros.
Oh, nice. Thank you very much from my side. It was my pleasure. I tried to speak from different perspective, on a different way, and I tried to share my experience and my knowledge and what my philosophy. And for sure, the best fun and is when we win a game, and everything what we do doing to win the game, and this is for me fundamental,
Yeah.
to enjoy and win.
Gentlemen, thanks very much. Stay safe and healthy. I'd like to thank Soccer Hub for organizing the event along with the NSCAC, and I'd also like to make sure that we note that on the 29th of April, tentatively, we have a session organized with the former men's national team coach Tony Waiters in Canada, and some of the group that traveled and participated on the 86 team. And if you're available, please join us for that. And by all means, stay safe, and thank you to all those who are making us safe. Ricardo, to you, my friend.
Thank you, Cosmos. I would like to do the same to first to congratulate all the speakers that we have during these 3 days. Also to thank the effort of NSCAC in promoting these kind of events to their members and all of the coaches that are interested in growing up as a coach. I would like to thank once again Ian for being with us. Thank you for our cooperation. Also, Nicola, thank you for being with us. Nice to meet you. And guys, I hope to see you soon as possible. And as Cosmos said, stay safe. And I hope that we can be in person together soon. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. All the best.
Well.
Bye-bye.